I work nights at a small convenience store on the edge of Phoenix. It's usually quiet after 10 p.m., just me, my coworker Louise, and our shift manager, Dana. I'm just trying to save up for school. Louise wants more hours to cover rent, and Dana is angling for a promotion she keeps hinting about. Before I go further, hit subscribe so you don't miss the twists in this workplace nightmare. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had a boss who didn't feel trustworthy? On this particular Tuesday, things felt off the moment I walked in. The register drawer was already light, and Dana kept hovering near the counter like she didn't trust either of us. Louise cracked jokes to break the tension, but even he noticed her watching every move. At midnight, a group of college kids came through, grabbed snacks, and left laughing. Nothing unusual, until I came back from restocking the cooler and Dana was suddenly red-faced, pointing at the register. "Where's the money?" she hissed. Almost $100 was missing, and she swore it was balanced at the start of the shift. My stomach dropped, because the way she looked at me made it clear who she thought took it. But then Louise whispered that he'd seen something on the security monitor that Dana didn't want me to know. Louise leaned closer while Dana stormed off to the back office, pretending to check the numbers. His voice was low, like he was afraid the walls had ears. "I saw her pull the drawer halfway open before you came out of the cooler," he muttered. My heart started pounding. If Louise was right, then Dana might be setting us up. I asked him why he didn't speak up immediately, but he just shook his head. "She's my manager too. What if I'm wrong? What if she says I'm lying?" I couldn't blame him, he had a lot to lose. But the thought of my paycheck, my reputation, and even a police report hanging over me made me feel sick. When Dana came back, she had a piece of paper in her hand. "The drawer was short at the beginning of the night," she announced, suddenly changing her story. "But now it's worse. Almost 200 gone." Her eyes locked on me again, not Louise. The whole room felt staged, like she'd already decided the ending. I told her we should review the security footage. If she was so sure, the tape would prove it. That's when Dana's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She said the cameras weren't working tonight. And that's when I realized something bigger was going on. The next morning, I got a call I wasn't expecting. Our district manager, Mr. Collins, wanted me in his office before my next shift. His tone was clipped, official, and it made my stomach sink even deeper. Dana had already reported me for theft. When I walked in, she was sitting across from him with her arms folded, wearing that same smug little smile. Louise wasn't there. It felt like a trial, and I was the only one on the stand. Mr. Collins laid it out bluntly. "Dana tells me the till came up short 2 nights in a row. Both nights you were on." He tapped a printed sheet that looked like transaction logs, and I realized she had already created a paper trail. My chest tightened, it looked bad, even though I hadn't touched a dime. I tried to defend myself. I said the cameras should show everything, but Dana interrupted smoothly, "They were offline." Convenient, isn't it? She didn't even look at me when she said it. I felt cornered, but then I remembered something she didn't know I had access to, the shift audit logs from our point-of-sale system. They tracked every time the drawer opened, even without a sale. And one entry stood out like a flare. When I finally got back to the store for my next night shift, I logged into the point-of-sale system. Dana rarely checked these audit logs herself, probably assuming no one else knew how. But I had trained on them during my first week. Scrolling through the entries, my pulse raced. The system showed every drawer action: sale completed, refund processed, drawer open manually. Around 11:47 p.m., the log showed 2 no-sale opens. I was in the cooler then. Louise had been sweeping the back aisle. That left only one person near the register. The kicker? Dana had clocked in a manager override just minutes before those entries. It was right there, stamped with her login ID. She must have thought the missing footage would cover her tracks. I printed the log quietly, folded it into my apron, and waited. Louise came in later, bleary-eyed but curious. I showed him the paper, and his eyes went wide. "She's gonna bury you if you don't use this," he whispered. I knew he was right, but dropping that kind of evidence without backup could still backfire. Dana had seniority and the ear of the district manager. So I decided to test Louise's loyalty before taking the next step. That night, before Dana showed up, I pulled Louise aside. I slid the folded audit log across the counter and said, "If I disappear tomorrow, you'll know why." His face paled, and for a second I thought he might walk right out the door. "I don't want to get dragged into this," he whispered. But then he glanced at the paper again. "She can't explain those override codes. If Collins saw this, it would flip the whole story. That was what I needed to hear. Luis was scared, but he wasn't blind. I told him my plan: the next time Dana accused me, I'd let her push hard, then I'd reveal the printout in front of both of them. Luis agreed to back me up, even if it meant risking his hours. Sure enough, Dana came in with that same air of superiority. She didn't even say hello before launching into her script. Another short drawer last night? Care to explain? Her eyes glittered, like she already had the ending written. I felt a knot in my chest, but this time, I was ready to snap the trap shut. Have you ever trusted a coworker with something that could ruin your job? I let Dana's accusations hang in the air a little too long, just so she'd think I was cornered. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, with that smirk she wore when she felt untouchable. Luis hovered near the back, pretending to stock chips, but I could see his eyes flicking nervously in our direction. Collins already wants me to write up a report, she pressed. If you confess now, maybe it won't go further. Her tone was almost sweet, but there was steel under it. I swallowed hard, then slowly pulled the folded printout from my apron pocket. The color drained from her face the second she recognized what it was. Funny thing about the system, I said calmly. It doesn't just track sales. It tracks every drawer open. Even the overrides. I laid the paper flat on the counter. To no sales. A manager override. All time-stamped while I was in the cooler. Luis stepped forward at just the right moment. Yeah, he said, voice steadier than I expected. I saw her at the register then. Not him. Dana's mouth opened, then shut. For the first time, she looked rattled. But she wasn't finished yet. She leaned closer and whispered, "You think Collins will believe you over me?" That's when I realized the real fight was only beginning. The next morning, Collins called me in again. This time Dana was already seated with a neat folder in front of her. She didn't even look at me as I sat down, but I could feel the trap tightening. Collins opened the folder and slid a paper across the desk. "Dana tells me you've been clocking in early and staying late without authorization. That's wage theft." My jaw dropped. It was true I sometimes clocked in a few minutes early to prep the counter, but never more than 5 minutes. Dana had stretched those entries into something that looked sinister. She had created a brand new narrative: not only was I stealing cash, I was stealing time. I pushed back, insisting she was twisting normal behavior into a lie. But Collins's eyes were fixed on me, not her. He was weighing whether I was worth the risk to the store's reputation. I needed to act fast. I reached into my bag and pulled out the audit log printout. My hands were steady, even though my heart hammered. "Before you decide," I said, "you should see what really happened at the register." Collins raised an eyebrow, but Dana's eyes widened just slightly. She hadn't expected me to fight back with evidence. That tiny crack in her confidence was all I needed. I slid the audit log across the desk. Collins adjusted his glasses and scanned the lines carefully. "Manager override. No sale. No sale," he read aloud. His eyes flicked up. "This happened while you were in the cooler?" "Yes, sir," I said firmly. "And Luis can confirm it." Dana's composure slipped. She tried to laugh it off. "System glitches happen all the time. You can't pin that on me." But her voice carried a tremor she couldn't hide. Collins tapped the paper with his pen. "Glitches don't log with an employee ID. And this one shows your code, Dana." For the first time, the balance of power shifted. I could almost feel the air change in the room. Dana pressed her lips together, clearly scrambling for another angle. Then she leaned back in her chair and muttered, "If you really think I'm the thief, check the cameras." Collins frowned. "You told me they weren't working." Silence stretched between them like a wire about to snap. My chest tightened. She'd contradicted herself, and Collins knew it. I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about whether Dana's entire career could unravel. "Do you think she'll double down or finally break?" Collins leaned back, studying Dana with a look that could cut glass. "So which is it? Broken cameras or footage we should be reviewing?" he asked. Dana's face stayed stone still, but her foot tapped nervously under the desk. That's when I remembered something: the monitor Luis mentioned on the night the cash went missing. Even if Dana claimed the cameras weren't recording, the system kept short-term storage by default. Unless she had manually deleted it, a backup might still exist. I looked Collins in the eye. The footage from Tuesday night should still be in the buffer. Unless someone erased it. The words hung heavy. Luis had been waiting outside the office. I motioned him in, and when Collins asked, Luis nodded quickly. I saw her leaning over the register when he was restocking. I didn't say anything because, well, she's the boss. But I saw it. Dana's jaw tightened. She opened her mouth, but Collins raised a hand to stop her. For the first time, I saw doubt shift away from me and settle squarely on her. Still, Dana wasn't finished. She leaned forward, eyes burning, and hissed, "If you're going to accuse me, you'd better be ready for what I've got on you." Dana leaned in, her eyes sharp as knives. "You think this audit log proves anything? You've been clocking in early, staying late, and sometimes taking items home for inventory checks, haven't you?" Her tone was sharp, accusatory, meant to make Collins doubt me. I took a deep breath. True, I had stayed a few minutes early and helped restock without logging every item, but it was nothing malicious, just part of the night shift grind. I could feel Collins' gaze flick between us, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Luis stood beside me, tense but ready. "He did everything by the book," he said firmly. "Dana's overrides show exactly what happened at the register. That's what the logs say." Dana scoffed, but Collins held up a hand. "Enough." He rubbed his temples, clearly weighing the evidence. "We need something concrete." "Nothing," he said, "nothing," she said, "just facts." I nodded, clutching the printout in my hand. This was my chance. "Then we can check the system logs, sir. Every drawer opening, every override, everything timestamped. Nothing can lie there." Dana froze. For the first time, her confidence wavered, and I realized that her next move would either save her or completely expose her. And that's when I noticed something on the printout Luis had overlooked. I squinted at the printout and froze. Amid the rows of drawer openings and overrides, one timestamp didn't match anything Dana could have done. It showed a manual drawer open at 11:52 p.m., but Dana's override was at 11:47 p.m. That 5-minute gap meant someone else had accessed the register after her, yet before Luis or me. Collins leaned over my shoulder. "What's this?" he asked, pointing at the line. I explained. "Dana triggered an override, yes, but whoever opened it at 11:52 didn't use her ID. That's after her window, whoever did it couldn't have been me. Luis was sweeping the back aisle, I was in the cooler, and no one else should have been near it." Dana's face went pale. She opened her mouth to interrupt, but Collins held up a hand. "Then who?" That's when I noticed the subtle shadow in the old security photo thumbnails, barely visible on the monitor. Someone else had been near the register, just long enough to grab the missing cash and leave. Dana's plan had relied on framing me completely, but she hadn't accounted for this third-party witness, the overnight delivery guy who had stopped in for coffee, right when the drawer went missing. Suddenly, the room's energy shifted. Dana's smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. And I realized, this case wasn't over, but the real thief might be someone she never expected. I quickly accessed the delivery log for that night. The timestamp matched perfectly with the mysterious manual drawer open at 11:52 p.m. The guy's name was Tony, a regular overnight delivery driver who swung by the store for coffee and snacks. Nothing seemed unusual about him, polite, always tipped well, no history of trouble. Collins leaned back, intrigued. "And you're sure he was the only other person near the register?" "Yes, sir," I said. "The audit logs confirm it, and Luis and I were accounted for elsewhere in the store. Dana tried to pin everything on me, but the system doesn't lie." I called Tony, who seemed nervous when I explained the discrepancy. He admitted he had grabbed a few dollars from the register during a moment of temptation, thinking no one would notice. "I didn't want to get anyone fired," he confessed. "I just panicked and left." Collins nodded, processing the turn of events. Dana's plan to frame me had completely backfired. She tried to interject, but her words fell flat. Luis gave me a subtle nod, relief and vindication in his eyes. For the first time in days, I felt in control again. But even as we resolved the mystery, Dana wasn't done scheming. She leaned forward, muttering under her breath about reversing the story. And I knew this fight wasn't fully. Dana's eyes burned with frustration, but she wasn't ready to admit defeat. "You think you've won?" she spat, voice low. "I still have connections with Collins. Maybe this doesn't end like you think." I stayed calm, showing her the audit logs one more time. "Everything is recorded, Dana. You can't change what the system already logged." Collins leaned back in his chair, watching the tension like it was a play. He glanced at Dana, then at me. "I've been here long enough to know when someone manipulates the facts. I also know a good employee when I see one. The logs tell the truth, not the story she tried to sell me." Dana's shoulders slumped. She realized this was the moment the scales had tipped. The look in her eyes was a mix of anger and begrudging respect. knowing the truth couldn't be twisted any further. Luis gave me a quick grin. "Guess your night shift prep finally paid off," he whispered. I smiled back, feeling vindicated. But just as I thought it was over, Dana leaned forward one last time, whispering, "You haven't seen the end yet." I knew then that the final reversal might be coming, and it could be messy. The next shift, Dana tried one last tactic. She attempted to convince another co-worker, Marissa, that I had somehow orchestrated the whole delivery guy theft to make her look bad. Marissa looked hesitant, unsure who to believe. I stayed calm and asked Marissa to check the audit logs herself. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the timestamps and overrides. "Wait. This doesn't add up," she murmured. "It's all Dana. He had nothing to do with it." Dana's face went pale. Her attempts to manipulate the narrative collapsed in front of a witness. Collins had been quietly observing via text updates from Luis and Marissa. He finally stepped in. "Dana, you've had your chance to explain, but the facts don't lie. We'll be filing a formal report on your behavior and misuse of manager privileges." For the first time, Dana realized the game was truly over. She had tried to control everything, but her own arrogance had undone her plan. Luis gave me a subtle nod of approval, and even Marissa smiled in relief. I felt a surge of vindication. All the pressure, the fear, and the sleepless nights finally paid off. Yet, as I packed my things at the end of the shift, I couldn't help but glance at Dana's retreating figure. She wasn't smiling, but her silence said it all. In the end, the truth came out. Dana faced a formal warning and had her promotion delayed indefinitely. Tony, the delivery guy, faced a small restitution and a warning from the district office. And me? I kept my job, earned Collins's trust, and gained respect from my coworkers, Luis and Marissa especially. The best part was watching Dana's carefully crafted plan crumble because she underestimated the audit logs, overlooked small details, and overestimated her control. It was a lesson in how arrogance and manipulation eventually backfire. Luis clapped me on the shoulder. "You handled this perfectly. Nobody else could have stayed so calm under pressure." I smiled, knowing that preparation, observation, and honesty were stronger than scheming and fear. Sometimes, the truth takes time, but it always surfaces, and the karma is real. Dana learned the hard way that the system doesn't lie, coworkers notice, and evidence has a way of speaking louder than words. If you were in my shoes, would you have exposed Dana the same way, or kept your head down? Hit like if you enjoyed this workplace drama story, and subscribe for more true-to-life office battles, each one more twisted than the last.